A nurse stayed late to comfort a lonely patient, unaware that he was a reclusive millionaire who would change her life forever. The sound of rain tapped gently against the hospital windows, echoing a soft, rhythmic beat that matched the quiet ache in Olivia's chest. The night shift had begun hours ago, but the hospital hallways remained eerily silent, bathed in dim amber light. The nurse's station hummed faintly, the flickering monitor casting shadows, but other than that, the wing was still. Olivia Turner, 30, moved gracefully through the empty hallways, her uniform neat despite the long hours. Her expression was calm, but behind her warm smile, there was a quiet sadness, a loss that life had carved into her. 5 years ago, she lost her parents in a tragic car accident, and only a few months later, her fiancé left her for another woman. Since then, she had lived in solitude, her heart full of compassion, but her life largely empty of companionship. She had chosen nursing not just to heal others, but because it gave her a sense of purpose when everything else had fallen apart. "Olivia," a voice called out softly. Nurse Maria passed by, her eyes looking kindly. "You're off in 10 minutes, right?" Olivia nodded, her smile faint. "Yeah, just finishing up with Mr. Carter in room 210. Maria frowned. "He's still refusing food?" Olivia offered a sad smile. "It's more than just food." Room 210 was dim, with only the soft glow of a bedside lamp illuminating the quiet space. Lying in the bed was Harold Carter, 79 years old, recovering from pneumonia. Once a tall, imposing man, he now appeared frail beneath the hospital sheets. His eyes, a sharp blue, stared out the window at the rain that streamed down the glass. His food tray sat untouched beside him, the pills in their paper cups still sealed. There were no flowers, no cards, and no visitors. Olivia stepped inside quietly, checking the floor and adjusting the oxygen flow. "You again, nurse?" Harold's voice was raspy but sharp. Olivia smiled warmly. "You're stuck with me tonight, Mr. Carter." He didn't respond immediately, his eyes still fixed on the rain. "Everyone else has someone, children, grandchildren, friends. Me, I've got nothing left but memories." Olivia paused before sitting beside him on the bed. "If memories are all you have, Mr. Carter, then tonight I'll be honored to share them with you." Harold turned his head slightly, surprised by her words. "You should be home, resting." Olivia chuckled softly. "Home is just a small apartment and take-out leftovers. I think I'm exactly where I'm meant to be tonight." He grunted, his eyes turning toward her. "You must not take very good care of yourself." Olivia laughed, a soft sound full of warmth. "I'm terrible at taking care of myself, but I'm great at taking care of others." Harold didn't say anything more. Olivia didn't push. She knew that sometimes silence spoke louder than any words. She gently picked up the spoon from the tray. "You haven't eaten since morning," she said softly. "Please, just a little." He hesitated, but after a moment, he nodded. She fed him slowly, carefully, like he was family. He chewed with difficulty but managed a few bites. "Better," she said with a gentle smile. "How about those pills?" He gave her a skeptical look, but she could see a flicker of trust beginning to form. He reluctantly took the cup and swallowed the pills. He then settled back against the pillows with a long sigh. Olivia moved her chair closer and rested her elbows on the edge of his bed. "Would it be all right if I stayed with you a little longer, Mr. Carter?" Harold didn't answer, but he didn't ask her to leave either. The rain continued to fall, its rhythm calming the atmosphere in the room. Olivia, feeling the weight of the silence, reached out and gently placed her hand on his. "My mother," she began quietly, used to sing to me when I couldn't sleep. It was an old lullaby, in French, I think. But I never learned the words, just the melody. Harold's expression softened, though he didn't speak. Would it be alright if I sang to you? Olivia asked, her voice barely a whisper. Harold closed his eyes but didn't refuse. Olivia began to hum softly, the melody from her childhood wrapping the room in its warmth. The notes swirled in the air, smoothing the rough edges of grief and loneliness. Harold's breathing slowed, his body relaxing. Minutes passed, and Olivia stayed, not because it was her job, but because no one should be alone, not even in the darkest moments. As the night passed, she stayed with him, adjusting his blanket when he stirred, offering him water when he needed it, and quietly humming as the storm outside grew fiercer. When Harold finally fell asleep, he mumbled something, almost inaudible. "Margaret," he whispered. Olivia didn't ask. She simply stayed, her hand resting on his. The next morning, Nurse Maria peeked in to check on Harold. She paused at the sight before her. Olivia was still there, her head resting on the edge of Harold's bed, her expression serene. Harold, once cold and alone, was now peacefully sleeping, the storm outside forgotten, soothed by the presence of another. Olivia's small act of kindness had brought peace, not through medication, but through simple, human connection. Later that day, Olivia returned to her apartment, a quiet space filled with only the faintest sound of rain outside. Her home was simple, a few worn-out chairs, a modest bookshelf, and a framed photo of a woman with dark eyes and brown hair, resting on the mantel. It was her mother. She had grown up with little, just her mother and the love they shared. Her mother had worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat, never complaining, always making their small house a home. But cancer had taken her slowly, and Olivia had watched the light fade from her mother's eyes day by day. That memory had pushed Olivia into nursing school, where she could be the calm in the storm for others, just as the nurse had once been for her mother. As the days passed, Olivia poured herself into her work with relentless dedication. She never cut corners, always remembering her patients' names, their favorite songs, and the little things that made them feel seen. But when the shifts ended and she returned to her apartment, the loneliness settled like dust, reminding her of the love she had lost. Her love life had crumbled after her mother's death. She had been engaged to James, a handsome young man she had met during her clinical rotations, but he had betrayed her, leaving her heartbroken and alone. Since then, she had chosen solitude, finding solace only in the work she did, where kindness was constant, predictable, and genuine. One evening, a man entered the hospital. He was tall, well-dressed, his face a mixture of guilt and determination. His name was Michael Westbrook, a successful businessman with a long list of achievements. He hadn't planned on visiting his father, who was in room 210, but when he received the call about his father's hospitalization, duty tugged at him. He had not seen his father in months, and the relationship had been strained for years. As he passed the nurse's station, his eyes caught sight of a woman sitting beside his father's bed. She was young, with auburn hair and a soft, caring expression. She was holding his father's hand, humming a lullaby. Michael paused in the hallway, watching her quietly. His father, who had always been stern and distant, was finally at peace, a faint smile on his lips. It was in that moment that Michael realized he had never given his father the peace he deserved. Over the following days, Michael visited more often, sitting by his father's side and speaking to him more than he ever had. He noticed the way Olivia treated the patients, how she listened, how she remembered little details, and how she made the hospital feel human again. She was present, not just physically but emotionally. One day, as they stood by the vending machine, their first real conversation happened. Olivia, sensing something in Michael, asked about his father. "Is he your friend?" she asked. Michael hesitated but answered honestly. "He's my father," he said quietly. Later, Olivia overheard two nurses discussing Michael's identity. It turned out that he was the CEO of Westbrook Enterprises, a wealthy man who had built an empire. Suddenly, the shared moments in the hospital, coffee breaks, hallway walks, felt like something out of a different world. That evening, as Olivia finished her shift, Michael waited for her outside. He had learned who she was, but he didn't want her to treat him differently because of his status. "I wanted to know who you were," he admitted. "You reminded my father what it meant to feel human again. And you've done the same for me." As they sat at a small bistro, Michael opened up more than Olivia had expected. He spoke of his childhood, of the void his father's absence had left, and how he had buried his grief in his work. "People like me," he said softly, "were trained to calculate risks and predict outcomes. But you, Olivia, you've shown me that life isn't about predictions. It's about being present. You've taught me how to feel again." A year later, after a quiet and intimate ceremony, Michael, now with a renewed sense of purpose, offered Olivia his heart. Beneath the trees, in the garden where his father had once sat alone, Michael asked her, "Will you marry me?" And for the first time in a long while, Olivia said yes. Together, they had built a foundation, a place for those who were forgotten, a legacy for those who had passed on, and a reminder that love could find its way back, even after loss. Sometimes healing doesn't come from grand gestures, but from simple presence, a hand held in silence, a song in the dark, a heart that dares to stay. And in the quiet corners of life, love can bloom again. Life is full of challenges and losses, but what matters is what we learn from them. One profound lesson from Olivia and Michael's story is the power of presence and human connection. When we face suffering or loneliness, we don't always need to seek out complicated solutions or distant answers. Sometimes, all it takes is a gentle word, a hand held, or quiet compassion to make a miraculous difference. This is clearly shown through Olivia's actions, as she stayed beside her patients not because it was her duty, but because she genuinely wanted to bring comfort to others. We can't change the past, but we can change how we face the present and future. Sometimes, it's not about what we have, but what we can give to others. Love and care are priceless gifts we can share, without expecting anything in return. If this story touched your heart and inspired you to make a difference in someone's life, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, leave a comment about how kindness has changed your life, and subscribe to our channel for more soul-stirring stories that remind us that it's never too late for love, hope, and second chances. Let's create a ripple effect of compassion and healing. Remember, even the smallest act of kindness can make the world a better place.